shoot the circle to the bottom of the circle. Bottom of the circle.
Still high.
Still high. Okay, move. We're going to shoot a little, shoot like low on the IPSIT, okay? Low and a little left.
Get back.
Okay, yeah. That's it. You can shoot it, yeah.
7, 8 o'clock on the circle.
Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Vector Optics Taurus GenII 3-24x56 ED in first focal plane. So in the beginning of this video you saw me shooting a match with this rifle, or with this rifle scope here, and I had the opportunity after receiving this optic to throw it on a rifle that I had put together and take it out to the Leak Hunting Preserve down in Oswego, PA, to shoot a match benefiting the SAVA, Serving All Veterans, All Wars organization. So, as you saw in the video, I had the opportunity to run this optic in a match. This was a centerfire match that took place varying ranges out 600 to 800 yards, where a lot of the shots took place, and the optic performed really well. But this is a new optic from Vector. I believe it debuted at SHOT Show 24, and it was really cool to be able to get my hands on one to check it out. So really quick, let's go over some of the specifications for this optic right here. First and foremost, I'm going to put the SKU number for this optic right here, because there are some different variations of the Taurus GenII. I believe they have a second focal plane option. They have some different options that have different magnification ranges, and this is the version that we're looking at today. So we have a 3-24 magnification range. It's an 8x ratio. We have a 56mm objective. We have a 34mm tube. Let's see, we are 13.9 inches long with a weight of 35.5 ounces. Our eye relief is listed at 3.8 inches. We have an exit pupil diameter of 18.6 millimeters at the low magnification range, and then at the highest magnification range, an exit pupil of 2.3 millimeters. Our field of view at 24 power, max magnification at 100 yards, is 5.13 feet. We have an angular field of view at the low end of our magnification range, an angular field of view of 7.84 degrees, and at maximum magnification, our angular field of view is 0.97 degrees. Our parallax goes all the way down to 10 yards to infinity. We'll take a closer look at that in a minute. The reticle in this particular version is the VTA-5 mil. It is a Christmas tree style reticle, which we'll take a closer look at here in a minute. Adjustable, or our elevation adjustment range, excuse me, they advertise at 30 mils of elevation. However, in my testing, I found that 30 mils is actually a bit conservative. We get a bit more adjustment out of this than advertised, and we're going to talk about that. It is IP67 waterproof rated, and our turrets are resettable zero with a adjustable zero stop, which we'll also take a closer look at as well. So what you get in the box, obviously you get your optic. Vector Optics includes a thread-in kill flash, which is a nice addition. You get your turret tool to remove your turret caps. You have, I do not currently have it installed, but you do have this focus. There we go. You do have this throw lever for the magnification that can be installed, like so. I did not have it installed. This has a very nice magnification ring, so I didn't feel the need to install it. You also get a set of bikini lens covers as well. Now, Vector sent along with this optic a set of their medium profile 34mm rings, or medium height rings, which I currently have installed. They are very nice, robust, perfect finish that matches the optic, and couldn't be happier with them. They look really good. So that covers what's in the box. Oh, one more thing. They also include a VIP warranty card as well, should you ever need to have this optic repaired or replaced for whatever reason. So in the beginning of this video, you got to see some footage that I was able to get of shooting stages at this match, and I wasn't able to get a lot of footage. Matches just get hectic. It's hard to keep track of everything, but I was able to get some. In this match, it was a beautiful hot day, lots of sunshine. It was very warm, and the scope performed very well. I was able to obtain very good scope images throughout the entire day, regardless of the angle of the incoming sunlight. I didn't have any issues with scope washout or anything like that due to the incoming light. It performed really well. The rifle that I installed this on was chambered in 223 Ackley improved. It's basically just a hot-rodded 223 Remington. And so shooting lighter bullets out at long range can be difficult to see where you hit a target or where you miss. And one of the benefits that I noticed with this was that I had no issue seeing both impacts and misses on targets out at that 700 to 800 yard range. I had really good scope clarity, and I was able to see impacts even with those small bullets that I was shooting out of that rifle. So overall, fit and finish is very nice. The scope has a very nice satin finish to the anodizing. It just looks really well done. Some manufacturers kind of have a rough anodizing, like a matte finish. This is a very nice even satin finish, and it looks very classy. Controls are all smooth, whether you're talking about elevation turrets, your parallax, your magnification ring, or your ocular eyepiece back here. All the controls are smooth, buttery, they feel great, they don't have any play to them. Everything just feels really well done, and I give all of that really good marks. All of our etchings, numbering on our turrets, numbering on our magnification ring, parallax, the etching, the laser etching is all very clean, looks very nice and crisp, and it's easy to read. All right, so here we are looking at our tracking test board with the Vector Optics Taurus 3-24x56. So I currently have this zeroed out, and I have the reticle lined up perfectly with the target line, the elevation line. It's squared up nicely, and the target down there is leveled. So as we track down, we should see straight, even tracking. If we see drifting, that tells me that my reticle is not lined up correctly with the erector, but let's see what happens. So let's go down 10 mils. I'm going to attempt to not mess things up here. It's 5. And 10. Now, what we can see here is we're just a whisker high. If I give it another 1/10, we come right down to our 10 mils. So we are 1/10 off at 10 mils. That is 10 mils on the turret. That is 10.1. So we have a 1% deviation for tracking. That is, in my opinion, very good. 1% is a very small amount. Most manufacturers consider 2% to be acceptable, so 1% is not bad. So here we go. We can reference our center line there. We're pretty much lined up perfectly. Let's go a couple tenths windage. Not tenths, excuse me. A couple mils. That is 2 mils. We are lined up perfectly. Back to 0 here. 2 mils, back to where we started. And 2 mils the other direction. Just a whisker off there. Let's see if we go back to 0. And so, looks like maybe a 1/10. Not quite a 1/2 tenth, not very much. Go back up to 0. And you can see I did end up shifting my jig here just a little bit, but we are right back to our 0 line. Elevation returned to 0 perfectly. Let's do 4 mils on our wind. We're very close there. Let's go back down to 0. Four mils. That appears perfect. And back to our 0. So for our 10 mil elevation test, we saw about a 1% error at 10 mils. I would consider that to be quite good. On windage, we saw about a 1/10 at 4 mils going to the left. Some of that, it may have been about a 1/2 a tenth maybe, but nothing extreme by any means, and it seems to be returning to 0 very well. So overall, I would say that this Taurus passes the tracking test with an A. Very good. So the turret design on this Taurus Gen 2 is exactly what I would love to see on any target type optic. We have a 10 mil rotation turret where there's 100 clicks per rotation, 10 mils per rotation. Markings are all clean, concise, very easy to read, and the turrets have a very good feel to them. We'll get into that a little bit more. Our parallax over here on the side, the numbering starts down at 10, go all the way down here, starts down at 10, and then we have a very wide swing for short ratios. There's 15, there's 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 75, 100, and then we very quickly get up past 300 and to infinite. So this optic, while you don't have real exact parallax adjustments beyond 300 yards, in fact, you don't have anything beyond, just going to infinity, even though I was shooting out at 700, 780 yards with this optic on a centerfire rifle, leaving this on infinite, I had a great scope image with good parallax out even that far. So don't let that fool you into thinking that this is not an optic worthy of shooting beyond 300-400 yards. It's absolutely capable of that. Windage turret, much like our elevation, great feel, great numbering. Everything's just what you would want to see. So real quick, I'm going to take my microphone here and we're going to listen to these turrets. The turrets have a fantastic texture and sound to them. They're not super loud and aggressively clicky. They're very smooth feeling, but they are tactile. I really like these turrets. They're not overly chunky. Some of the manufacturers have kind of traded off smoothness for aggressiveness in the name of getting a loud click, and this has not really followed that trend. I really like how these feel. They're just a nice overall turret in terms of feel and sound. Each detent lines up perfectly, exactly where it's supposed to, with the marking on the scope body and the scope cap, which is obviously perfect. So now let's take a closer look into the turret construction itself. So to access the inside of our turrets and either reset 0 or adjust our 0 stop, we first need to remove this top cap. The included scope tool here makes quick and easy work of that. This is all O-ring sealed. So first off, the first thing that I want to talk about is this scope cap here. And while this seems like a very simple component, there's a an important note that I'd like to make, and it has to do with the threaded stud here. This threaded stud is quite long compared to what a lot of manufacturers will use, and this engages the top post of our erector with a number of threads and not just one or two threads. This has several rotations before it's fully seated, which means that you have a lot of thread material holding all of this together to the erector, and that's good. It means that this is much less likely to strip out and fail. So big kudos there on not sacrificing material by keeping this too short. Vector did a good job with that. So once this is off, we'll set that off to the side. And now we can see the top of our scope cap. Lifting this up, we have our cap. Inside here, the splines that engage the cap to the erector are down in there. They're deep, so they're not likely to be easily damaged. And we see this black ring here, which is our zero stop. And we can see the top of our erector and an O-ring up on top as well. To reset zero, all you would do at this point would be take the cap and line up your zero, reseat it to zero, and then put your cap back on, tighten it down, and you're good to go. If you, however, needed to adjust your zero stop, it's very straightforward. This black disc here has 3 set screws, one here, and one back here. Simply loosening these will allow us to slip our zero stop plate wherever we need it. So lifting this off, we can see on our plate there is a post right here. This post engages with a lug on the scope tube itself, or not tube, but the scope body. And all you do is you line this up so that the post is up against that lug. Tighten down your screws, put your scope cap back on to zero, tighten everything down, and your zero stop is now set. If you like to set your zero stop a few underneath zero, all you do is, instead of positioning that lug against the stopper on this disc, you simply rotate it back a little bit, tighten these screws down, and then put this down, and you'll be able to dial beyond zero. Very easy design. One thing that struck me that I really enjoyed seeing was the internals of this turret are all stainless. This material in here is all stainless steel. There's no soft brass. I love seeing stainless steel inside scope systems. It's just gonna hold up better over time. It's, heavy, more costly, not as easy to machine, but it adds to longevity in my opinion. So very simple mechanism for the zero stop and for resetting zero. Now, one quick note that I would like to quickly make, if you end up buying one of these scopes or getting your hands on one of these scopes, when you're installing it and you're trying to level this optic on your rifle and in your mounts, a lot of people will tend to, they'll take a scope level and they'll put it across the top of their scope cap like that. And after mounting this optic up in my jig and getting everything square with the reticle to a tracking target so that the reticle was square, I found that the top of the turret is not a good place to level from. What you should actually do is very carefully disassemble your turret and remove this O-ring. And you should, now I don't have any of this level, so it's not going to level out right now, but leveling from this point is actually the closest to being accurate to the reticle. If you don't have the ability to level off the reticle, level off of the top of the erector here, it seems, at least on my optic, to be the most accurate place to do that. For now, I'm going to leave that off. So, I mentioned earlier about, mentioned earlier about scope travel. So Vector Optics has listed this scope as having 30 mils of overall elevation travel. And that's actually not true, not for this model scope at least. So let me dial this all the way down to 0 here. Okay, so we are at the bottom of the erector. This is as low as it goes. Let's count up. 10, 20, 30, 40, and then we're stopped. This optic has 40 millimeters, 40 milliradians of internal adjustment, which is fantastic. That is a huge amount of adjustment. So, really good option for rimfire or precision air rifle shooters, I would certainly say, because that is a huge amount of adjustment, and coupled with a 30 or a 40 MOA base, or even a 50 MOA base for that matter, you'd be able to dial out a very long distance. Resetting the windage turret is exactly the same as the process for the elevation. You simply remove the top cap, slip the cap over, re-zero it, push it back, and reinstall the cap, and you're all set. So let's briefly talk about the glass clarity in this optic. So Vector Optics advertises this as having ED, or extreme low dispersion glass, and I would say that it lives up to those claims. The cartridge that I was shooting at that match does not provide a lot of energy on impact at long range, and being able to see impacts on steel targets or misses can be difficult. But with this optic, I had no issue being able to see a majority of both my impacts or my misses if I missed because of a bad wind call. I was able to pretty easily get back on target because I could see what was happening downrange after the shot. That speaks a lot to the overall usability of the optic. The glass was pretty clear. I would put it on par with some very other good staple optics in the price range of this optic, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But I would say that it punches perhaps even a little bit above some of the competition in the $550 range. The reticle is very fine, as we saw in the tracking test. I like that. I tend to prefer a thinner reticle, but there are some downsides to a smaller reticle. This is not an illuminated option this scope does not have an illuminated option, at least, and that can mean that if you're shooting into a shadowy, dark area, it may be difficult to see the reticle. So that's something to keep in mind. On top of that, because the reticle is so thin, I don't think I would recommend this for any type of hunting application unless it's maybe on a prairie dog rifle or a long-range varmint rifle where you're going to be shooting in bright daylight most of the time anyway. In those cases, it would be fine. The magnification range, I like it. Having a maximum of 24 power is plenty. I shot the majority of that match on around 18 power. That's where I found that I really liked the size of the reticle. It just worked for me quite well. The reticle etchings are very crisp and easy to see and read. I had no issues with it at all. I liked the reticle as it was. It's not overly complicated. It's actually a relatively simple reticle as far as Christmas tree style reticles go. Some final thoughts on this. I think that for the money, this is a great optic overall. The price point of this is somewhere between, I believe, $500 and $550, $500 and $550. So on the Vector Optics website, the US website, they have this optic, but in the 4 to 30 power version, and that optic is $599. This version of the optic has not yet landed in the US website. I'm sure that they'll probably be adding it soon. You can, however, see it on the international website. And so my guess would be, based on the price of the 4 to 30 power version, that this one would probably be around $550-ish maybe, which puts it very close to the price point of something like an Arkin EP5, which is another very good optic in that mid, price range, like $500. And I think that this optic punches right alongside the Arkin in terms of both glass clarity and tracking accuracy. It does well on all fronts. Now, I think that this would be a fine choice for both long-range centerfire shooters, but I think this optic could really shine for rimfire and air rifle competitive shooters who shoot long-range rimfire like NRL, NRLX, PRS-22, or anybody who shoots an air rifle in any of those types of competitions as well. And the reason why I say that is, number one, the very fine reticle is great for that type of work. It's amazing how rimfires are almost like surgical instruments at this point. They're very accurate pieces of equipment, and you're shooting quite small targets oftentimes. But along with that, you have this very fine parallax adjustment between 10 and 100 yards. And in, say, NRL, that's where a lot of your target distances end up being. And then obviously NRLX goes out further, as does PRS rimfire. But so in a rimfire application, I think this optic could certainly be awesome. And along with that, the large amount of elevation adjustment is also a big bonus for both rimfire and airgun shooters. This optic will go on to my competitive rimfire rifle, and I'll shoot as many matches as I can with it for a while. It's been a bit of a slow year for me so far, but I want to kind of put it through those paces as well, where you're fairly often dialing well beyond 10 mils of adjustment, up to 20, even 25 mils. So overall, I think it's a great scope. I think that Vector needs to hurry up and get it on their US website so that people can see this, because you almost have to dig around a little bit for it. Once again, I'm going to put the SKU number for this right here, and if you search this, you'll be able to find it on their international website. Unfortunately, you won't find it on the US website, so just be aware of that. I have a feeling, though, if you wanted to order one of these, if you contact the Vector customer service with the SKU number for this optic, I have, no doubts that they'll be able to get you one of these optics, even though it's not on the website. So overall, I hope that I have kind of shed some light on this optic, and I tried to, really showcase everything as best as I can overall. But I think it's been a good performer for me so far, and I expect that it will continue to be a good performer for a long time to come. So keep your chambers clean and stay safe.
Yeah, packed.
Oh. Yeah, there's no one there.